Everybody that loves music knows more than a few bands or artists that they think of as sounding the same all the time. Too repetitive, on repeat, a broken record. And you get sick of them, right? You're tired of them. Maybe they had a really cool sound to them, a really cool signature sound, and that's great. But something about what they do, it just sounds, it's too much of the same all the time. There's no variety. Nothing keeps you excited. You know exactly what the next single is going to sound like, or the next album even, before it comes out. And if you're an artist or a band, you're in a band and you guys write your own stuff, you don't want that problem. You don't want to sound like a broken record. You don't want your music to turn into monotony in the listener's head, right? You want listeners to be excited for what you're going to come out with next, because they don't know what it's going to be. They don't know what it's going to sound like, but they love all the stuff that you keep coming out with, all the variety of things that you give them. And you want to keep those fans hanging on, those listeners hanging on for the long haul, and keep them excited for the future, instead of causing them to become bored of you pretty quickly, usually, and then forget about you and fall off. Because if that's the trend, your music career is not looking too bright. But if you're trying to avoid that, then you're in the right place. Because today, I'm going to tell you 4 things you need to think about to make sure that your songs don't sound like a broken record. But before we get into that, let me introduce myself. My name is Brandon with Megatonic Audio. I'm excited to share with you some knowledge I've learned over the years in music. So let's talk about it. But before we get into that, guys, if you are a musician, an artist, you're in a band, and you like this kind of content, please hit the like button and the subscribe button below to make sure my video gets out to more people and that you get notified when I have a new video. I'm trying to build this channel, and those things really help me a lot. Also, share and comment. That helps me a lot as well. But anyway, so you're here, you're still watching because you want to know, how do you become like, let's say somebody like Chris Cornell, right? That's a good example of somebody that no matter what album he's on or even what project he's making an album with, all of his stuff, there's just so much variety, whether he's with Audio Slave, whether he's solo, Soundgarden, Temple of the Dog, everything. Album to album, song to song, there was a lot of variety between it all. And until he died, sadly, anybody that followed him was always anticipating, what's the next thing going to be like? Because he didn't just constantly regurgitate things that he's already done. Same with Radiohead. Everything that they do, you never know what you're going to get with Radiohead. And for better or worse, you never know what you're going to get with Radiohead. I love Radiohead. I do. I'm not picking at them too hard. I'm a Radiohead fan, but another British band, Kasabian, if you haven't heard of them. Lots of songs, lots of variety. Yeah, the list goes on. I don't want to give too many examples and go off track, but we want to be remembered like that, and not just remembered when we're gone, but we want people to see us that way and to be excited about our music in that way and never get tired of our music. Something about those artists I just mentioned, because of their variety, when you get tired of one sound from them, there's always other stuff of theirs to go back to where instead of having these like kicks for a couple months or whatever, where you just listen to Incubus or something all the time. You just listen to Incubus for like 2 months and it starts to fade into another kick. Theoretically, you could listen to everybody I mentioned constantly. And the only thing that would make you maybe tired of them maybe would be the sound of the singer's voice, because that would be the only thing that repeats, really. All their songs, there's so much variety. There's so many different eras within each of those people I talked about with different styles of their music. Again, not just eras, not just albums, but song to song on the same album. And again, it keeps fans excited. It keeps us on our toes. And you want people to be on your kick for your music as long as they can, right? You want to hold them. You want to hold them down, right? There's probably a better way to say that. And you can do that, but it's not usually bands and artists will, the first thing they think of, how do we freshen our sound? Well, we'll get a new mix engineer, or we'll get our next thing recorded at a different studio, or we'll do it all at home or whatever. And it's actually, what I'm going to talk about is not that surface level stuff. It's actually deeper than that to not sound monotonous. It all starts in the pre-production stage. If you don't know what that is, it's before you start the production stage, which is when you actually, put something to tape, or digital now. When you actually start recording and then mixing and mastering, all that stuff, all the technical stuff. Pre-production is before that, which is everything before that. That's the songwriting, who's going to be on the record if you're a solo artist and you need musicians. It's everything before that. So you need to be thinking about everything in that process to really nail down the roots of the song, to make sure that no matter who's recording or mixing or mastering it, that these songs to their core will sound different from other songs. Now we'll start with the most obvious thing to do. We'll get the most obvious out of the way, which is when you're in your pre-production and you're writing your song, decide what is the instrumentation you're going to have in the song, as well as you're kind of establishing the tonality on paper before you actually get to recording. You're thinking about what it should sound like, and be really intentional on what tones should you use where, and it's going to change when you get into a room with your band or by yourself or with a producer to test different sounds and stuff, because sometimes you just don't know, but you need to try things out first. And when you do that, make sure you shake it up a little bit. Don't do the same exact either instrumentation, like what instruments are going to be playing in the song, as you did with your last 10 songs or whatever you have at the moment. Make sure you shake it up a little bit. Add something different that you haven't had before, or that would still fit the tone of the song, the feel of the band, without messing up your signature sound, whatever you've come up with. And if you haven't come up with a signature sound, I got a video on that. And if you have your signature sound and you're experimenting with instrumentation and stuff, you don't want to always use the same thing, I have a video on that, on how to evolve your signature sound and stay true to it without changing too much, like the happy medium there. I got a video on that too. But yeah, even if you don't want to change the instrumentation of what's playing in your songs, like let's say you're in the punk rock genre and it's pretty much drums, bass, guitar, vocal. That's it. And it's always that, right? That's fine. You can still have a different sound tonally between songs and have the same instruments. That way you can get away with a little bit of variety and not get your listeners too tired of you all the time from sounding exactly the same, at least tonally. So experiment with your bass. If you never distort it, or if you always distort it, do the opposite or use a different distortion, or same with guitar. Drums even, a little bit of distortion to beef them up. Or if you always do that, make it more raw sounding. There's all kinds of ways to do it. But anyways, that's instrumentation and tonality. So that's the obvious sonic changes you can make to not sound the same. But there's other stuff that before you even get to deciding your instrumentation and your tones, one that people don't think about a lot, and it helps when you have a producer working with you, is the key of your song. I'm not saying you need to modulate, you need to have a key change in your song. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm saying you need to make sure you're not making every song in the same key. Now, I know vocalists have a range of keys that they are comfortable in. You can either get good and expand your range, or just make sure that it varies between song to song. Unless you're doing like a concept album or like a story narrative album that kind of like the songs flow into each other, try not to put a song in the same key next to another song in that exact key when you're doing your sequencing. And try not to have too many songs, even if they're not right next to each other. If there's too many in E minor, then that stuff is just going to kind of blend together, right? But also, you can experiment with, when I'm talking about key, what mode is it, or the scale? Like what type of scale is it? Not just, there's more than just major and minor. And not to get too music theory on you, but it helps to do keys from different cultures even. Like, I can remember there's some stuff that I've done that when I just didn't know what I wanted to do musically, I just wanted to write something, to practice writing something, and I wanted to do something different. Well, there's like apps now on your phone. There's so many guitar toolkit apps that have like every scale ever and have all the different, you can separate them by cultures of the world, or historic, whatever. There's all different ways to go through them. There's a lot of different scales, and you're not going to run out of options there. And when you choose a scale that is a new key, a new scale, or a mode you've never played in before, it is going to freshen up your sound. Even if you have the same instrumentation with the same tones, that's a big part of it. What's your scale? What's the progression and all that? I mean, that really sticks with people, especially when it's something they're not used to hearing. But don't just do something crazy and weird and kooky because, they're not used to hearing it. Don't be too avant-garde there, because you can turn a lot of people off really quick if you start getting too weird. But, do what you're going to do, right? You're the creative, not me. The third thing that people don't think about, that they need to think about in the pre-production stage to make sure that they are not a broken record, is their song structure. I remember when I was in a session a long time ago, I was engineering for a session, and the artist, who was a regular, they worked with the producer on the regular all the time. The producer had asked the artist, what's the structure of this song going to be? Because they were constructing it at the time. And he had some lyrics and a chorus. And he didn't know exactly what he was going to do yet. And he was like, okay, well, let me structure this out. What's it going to be like? And the artist sat there and thought for all of 3 seconds and said the exact song structure that they always say. They would always say this. And they were like, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge. We got to have a bridge. Chorus or double chorus. And then that's it. And that's always what they said. They said that every time. But they were saying it like, ooh, for this one to be different. But they weren't being different. Every single one was the same. And me sitting there, I just anticipated this is exactly what this person's going to say. And I already knew it because they had done it almost every time. That was always their structure. They never deviated from it. And because of that, it was something I noticed. I noticed it before this session. Nobody talked about it ever. It's just something I noticed. And if you notice that about song structure, if you notice that with bands that you hear, that's a little bit of a chink in the armor. That's a little bit undesirable, we should say. It's just repetitive. It's just one little blemish on your songs as a whole, not just the song, but you as an artist, when people start to realize, yeah, they always do this, like every time. And not everybody's going to fall off because of your song structure. But adding all these things together that you keep doing the same way is really hurting your chances. So if you change this as well, it can definitely liven up your songwriting process. Good example of this is Queens of the Stone Age. They have songs it'll be like one type of song for the first half, and then it completely just flips. The instrumentation, the tones, the structure, sometimes the key, it all just changed at like the halfway point, and it's just like a new song. And it's really refreshing. To me, some of those are their best songs. Those are some of their best songs, in my opinion. And part of that is because it's not just not the same, it's within one song, there's variety, right? And it's exciting. You're always waiting for that change. You're waiting for that part. And when it changes, yeah, that's just another good example. That's a really good band that really does give you variety well. They give you variety in a good way, in many different ways too, through their music. And because of that, you never know what you're going to get with them, even though they have a signature sound. They have a couple of signature sounds. It's still a lot of variety. But anyways, that's enough with that. The next thing, the final thing you need to think about is actually, what are you writing about? What's the subject matter? That's right. Number 4, subject matter. Subject matter matters. So what you're writing about, you don't want to become the person that only writes about one thing. Now, you can be the person that writes about a certain type of thing a lot, but even then you want to write about other things as well. It's part of your brand or whatever, but you don't want every song to be like, you don't want to be the breakup song person that every breakup song is from the same point of view, from the same kind of person. You're being dumped or you got cheated on, like every song is that, and it's from your point of view. You want to shake it up. You want to make sure, okay, if you're writing about relationships or breaking up, maybe you have some that are like the perspective is this is the way it had to happen and it hurt so much at the time, but it was for the best. I'm actually grateful for it. Well, that's a new way of thinking about it instead of always talking about getting dumped or whatever, somebody cheating on you or whatever. Or maybe it could be the same situation, but from the other person's perspective. You know, maybe they're 2 songs back to back on the same EP, or you do a single and the physical release is a 45 and you got, the breakup from one point of view, and then the B-side is from the other person's point of view with a little bit more of the story that you didn't know from the A-side, and then you leave your listeners, thinking of, oh, well, who was right here, and do we believe this guy or do we believe this girl or whatever it's going to be. I just gave y'all a great idea. Somebody use it. Somebody do that. I'm sure it's been done before, but who's doing it now, right? Anyway, yeah, you can talk about the same type of things that can be part of your brand, but don't make every single song the same exact subject matter, because people will get bored, just like I said at the beginning of the video. All these things, if you don't put it all together, some of them make more of a difference than others on their own, but if you do it all together, everything I just said, those 4 points, your songs are definitely going to be really diverse. There's a variety of types of songs, types of sounds, styles, everything when people listen to your music, and they won't get tired of it so easily. And that's what you want. Keep your following, keep your listeners right with you the whole time as much as you can by giving them a good experience that doesn't always change drastically, but has a little variety change up here and there so that you just don't sound like a broken record and they can get excited about what the next thing is going to sound like. All right, I'm rambling again. I gotta put a pause to it. Thank you guys for watching and listening this long. I really do appreciate it. If you like content like this, please like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. it helps more people see content from me, and it helps me get to more people like you about topics like this. And let me know what you think about the content below. Also, if you are an artist or you're in a band and you're looking for a producer to help bring your music to the next level, I can help you with all that, from the songwriting all the way to the final master, or just the pieces you're needing. And you can click the link in this video description to learn more about how that works and fill out a short inquiry form to see if we're a good fit for each other, working together in the future. And if we are a good fit, I'll let you know. Also, if we're not a good fit, I'll let you know. So that's all I got for the day. Thank y'all so much for listening to me ramble on about all that. And yeah, y'all be good.